It wasn't too long ago that tablets, video calling, and self-driving cars were something only seen in a sci-fi movie or TV show. So which devices went from the world of science fiction to actually becoming science fact? What devices do you use every day were influenced by your favorite Hollywood productions? Find out as we use the Force to beam up the movies and TV shows that inspired real-life tech. From Star Trek to mobile phone. The handheld communicator device from Star Trek has been a fixture of the franchise since it debuted on TV on September 8, 1966, allowing the characters to wirelessly share audio communication with their ships in space and with each other over long distances. And while the smartphones of today don't flip like they used to, in the late 90s when they did, the original design was taken from the cult classic 60s sci-fi TV show. The concept for the technology was well ahead of the first successful mobile phone test in 1973, and the Motorola Dynatac didn't break the ice as the first publicly available cell phone until 1984. At the time, the Dynatac retailed for $3,995, or just over 12 grand in today's bucks. And let's just say it wasn't very compact. While the brick phone gave way to the flip phone, which gave way to the smartphone, it seems the flip is making a bit of a comeback. Maybe people still want to feel like they're walking around in a real-life Star Trek episode. 2001: A Space Odyssey meets Alexa and Siri. Long before we were asking Alexa to play our favorite song or Siri to tell us the weather, a famous sci-fi movie series asked Hal to open the pod bay doors. 2 years after Star Trek hit the small screen, the sci-fi epic 2001: A Space Odyssey hit the silver screen in 1968 and featured the character HAL 9000. HAL was a voice-activated AI assistant portrayed as a black interface with a red dot. Not all that different from the Google Nest speaker you might have on your kitchen counter today. Modern virtual AI assistants haven't gone crazy like HAL 9000 did, and are so far sticking to helping us hands-free with daily questions, queries, and quick tasks. HAL might not have opened the pod bay doors on that Space Odyssey, but as long as Alexa and Siri can still open your garage door to park your Honda Odyssey, you're all set. The Jetsons House. The swinging 60s wasn't just about eye-popping sci-fi TV and movies. It also pumped out futuristic cartoons like The Jetsons, which became a big hit in 1962. Much of the Jetson family's futuristic Home Sweet Home featured far-out tech like robotic arms that did the dishes or conveyor belts that people stood on for daily grooming and dressing routines like the automated car washes we know today. They even had a human-sized robot maid named Rosie who took care of the housekeeping. While we're not quite in the era of human-sized metallic household maids, yet, Rosie doing the chores did eventually give way to the Roomba robot vacuum that keeps our carpets clean today. It doesn't walk upright or talk with a sassy New York accent like Rosie did, but since it saves us from pushing brooms and emptying vacuums, who's to complain? While there is still a ways to go before we live in Jetson-like luxury, today's smart homes are getting closer to making it a reality. At least some of it, anyway. Knight Rider versus cars today. In the 1982 TV series Knight Rider, David Hasselhoff starred as a justice-seeking crime fighter aided by his high-tech, high-intelligence, AI-activated automotive masterpiece, KITT. An acronym standing for Knight Industries 2000, the car featured all kinds of high-tech gadgets like lasers, grappling hooks, and flamethrowers. But in the 1980s, the most far-fetched and fictional part was that the car could think and talk, and even drive itself. The concept has become commonplace now, with today's computer-filled cars bringing us built-in voice-activated AI assistants, self-driving autonomous operation, and dashboard display video screens that are all straight out of any Knight Rider rerun. So to get from point A to point B today, you may be driving a vehicle that's almost as high-tech as KITT was, minus the lasers, grappling hooks, and flamethrower, of course. Wearable tech from various sci-fi movies. It's easy to forget that not so long ago tech didn't travel well. Everything from telephones to TVs to computers once had to be tethered to a cord plugged into an outlet on the wall to function. And once you stepped outside, you were officially disconnected until you came back home. While we can take our tech with us in wearable ways today, the idea goes way back. Smart glasses that played TV shows and made video calls appeared in the 1989 sequel Back to the Future 2. And the 2002 sci-fi flick Minority Report had glasses with fingertip swiping and heads-up displays. Oculus, Google, and Microsoft have brought all these things to life in modern times, but the more common wearable tech these days is on your wrist. The prime function of Apple Watches and Fitbits might not be limited to communication, but the 1946 Dick Tracy two-way radio watch and the alternate wrist-worn version of the Star Trek communicator from 1979's Star Trek the Motion Picture paved the way for having a chat on something that was once only used to check the time. Before we get to more TV and movie tech, take a second to like and subscribe. Your support really does make a difference. Thanks. From Star Trek Next Gen to the iPad. It was in January 2010 when the first generation iPad hit stores, but it owes its roots to Star Trek's second generation. A little over 2 decades after its predecessor, Star Trek's sequel series, Star Trek The Next Generation, premiered in September 1987, and its first episode featured an iPad-esque device that was later named a PAD, without the I. Standing for Personal Access Display Device, the handheld touchscreen tech was meant as a futuristic way to eliminate the clutter of the usual pens, pencils, and stacks of paperwork that were the backbone of businesses and offices of the 80s. Of course, today, we don't have to be flying on a starship to use a device of that caliber, and we might say that iPads have surpassed the Star Trek pads since we never saw the ones on TV playing music or posting pics to Instagram. Star Wars and real-world holograms. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. This was the now quotable holographic message from the first Star Wars movie in 1977. But nobody at the time would have thought the hologram seen on the big screen would one day become real enough to give life to music royalty. It was in 2012 at the Coachella Music Festival when a real-time holographic image was first used to depict a performance of deceased rap star Tupac Shakur. A projection of Michael Jackson then performed at the 2014 Billboard Music Awards, and the floodgates were opened. Questions of the morality of portraying dead musicians as very much alive were front and center, but promoters rolled on with recreations ranging from Whitney Houston to Roy Orbison to Buddy Holly and Ronnie James Dio, all posthumously performing. The Terminator meets Boston Dynamics robots. Early science fiction often portrayed robots as clunky, washing machine-shaped, with light bulb heads and flailing hooks for hands. But a more modern approach found popularity in humanoid forms like C-3PO from Star Wars or the cybernetic T-800 skeletons from the Terminator franchise. Fast forward even further, and the robots we see in real life have grown well beyond the puck-shaped Roomba cruising your kitchen. Companies like Boston Dynamics have now developed a mobile, life-sized, two-legged robot like the humanoid Atlas model, as well as its more dog-like four-legged model Spot. And even a more simplistic droid design like R2-D2 hasn't been left out, with the Boston Dynamics model Stretch providing a more stripped-down and functional style. The future is closer than we think, with robots and robotics becoming more and more common across everyday life and multiple industries. Back to the Future 2's hoverboard technology. Not to confuse anyone, but let's go back to the Future. The second film in the trilogy, in addition to the smart glasses we talked about, also featured a futuristic skateboard that didn't require wheels. Instead of rolling on wheels, it hovered over thin air. The plot of the movie featured time travel from 1985 to 2015, so it was only appropriate that its real-life version debuted in August of 2015. A pet project of the famous car engineers at Lexus, the Lexus Slide hoverboard was magnet-propelled and could only run for around 20 minutes before it needed to cool down. Unlike the Go Anywhere Except Water movie version, it could only run on its own custom-built skate park track that was lined with properly polarized magnets. From Star Trek's Replicator to 3D printing. There was a time when even the convenience of a microwave seemed like a fictional fantasy, but science fiction imagined a place so convenient that the food would come out hot without having to put anything in first. As early as the original 1960s Star Trek, and then through the various spin-offs, devices called replicators used a made-up matter-energy conversion technology to rearrange material into almost anything a character asked for. They most commonly were used for synthesizing food and drinks for a quick bite, but some episodes saw replicators create whole solid objects like clothes, medicine, tools, and musical instruments. A similar technology exists today, with the advent of 3D printing using computer blueprints to arrange simple materials like biodegradable plastic into solid objects used for everyday applications. For now, we'll still have to wait for a 3D printer that can make us lunch. Sci-Fi inspired real-time language translation apps. It's hard to have a conversation with someone if there's a language barrier. Star Trek writers solved the problem of understanding aliens that speak incomprehensible languages with the creation of the Universal Translator. The device allowed instant interpretation and translation to English of any spoken word in the galaxy. And speaking of galaxies, a similar concept appears in every version of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy franchise. That one isn't tech though, but it comes in the form of the tiny yellow babblefish that has to be placed in a character's ear to translate any language. Luckily in this day and age, we've got Google Translate and real-time translation apps to do the job. And we don't have to put a wriggling fish in our ear just to order dinner while on vacation. Space tourism in the movies to SpaceX and Blue Origin. The concept of space tourism featured in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey was actually right on time. Once only the playground of a select few highly trained professional astronauts, Space Odyssey's vision of space travel that was accessible to the common citizen actually became a reality in the year 2001. Businessman Dennis Tito was the first private citizen to pay to play in space when he spent $20 million, or about $35 million today, for a ride on a Russian rocket to the International Space Station. Today, companies like Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, and SpaceX offer private trips to space, but with a price tag that's just as out of this world as the trip itself. Brain interfaces from the Matrix to Neuralink. The sci-fi concept of bypassing the pesky necessity of having to use your hands and fingers in order to operate something has been explored from a few different angles. It's technically called a BCI, or brain-computer interface, and has been in big screen epics ranging from 1980's RoboCop to the Matrix trilogy and its spin-offs, to the more recent Avatar franchise. Direct and instantaneous communication between the brain and a machine seems far-fetched even today, although the Neuralink company has been on the case since 2016. The company recently implanted its Neuralink chip into its first patient, a clinical trial to give a paralyzed patient more autonomy. While the interface doesn't have the action-adventure intentions depicted in the movies, Neuralink's mission statement claims to be focused on giving people with quadriplegia the ability to control their computers and mobile devices with their thoughts. Cinema's virtual worlds and the Metaverse. Have you heard the expression, reality is a nice place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there? Well, it used to be just a joke found on a bumper sticker or fridge magnet. But thanks to some science fiction synergy, it soon might become a bigger part of your life. While 1999's The Matrix did dabble in a brain-computer interface, rather than controlling a robot or exoskeleton, it was used to control an avatar in an immersive, realistic virtual world. The concept of leaving physical reality for a digital reality was also explored in Disney's feature film Tron, released in 1982, and its sequel Tron Legacy in 2010. Spending less time in this universe is already a thing thanks to VR headsets and Meta, who is inching closer to leveling up the internet into its Metaverse, an immersive, open, and 3D virtual world that includes shopping, gaming, and socializing. There's no doubt that TV and movies have shaped the world around us, but for all the hits, there have sometimes been misses too. While real-time video calling from the original Blade Runner and Back to the Future is now commonplace on Skype, Zoom, and FaceTime, despite what the Jetsons, The Fifth Element, and the time-traveling DeLorean showed us, none of us are commuting in flying cars. So it's tough to say if the sci-fi tech you see on the screen today will be the hit gadget of the future or just the product of an unrealistic imagination. If you liked this video, then stick around for another Now and Then video we think you'll enjoy.